Hey everybody, this is Trailing Spouses, and on this episode we're going to talk about a very important topic, raising third culture kids. Now Z and I are both moms, and we both have firsthand knowledge about this topic. So we're going to dive right in to talk about some of the things that you need to consider if you're thinking of becoming an expat, raising third culture kids.
Yes, it's very important to realize that in this age, when we're raising our kids, we're raising them on totally different platforms in terms of geographic locations, cultural influences as well. And that impacts our children. It impacts their education, it impacts their perspective in life, it impacts their interaction with everything, including us, the parents.
Yes, especially us, the parents. Their world is so different. You're absolutely right. It's from this global lens. My kids have lived in, obviously they were born in America. We lived in London for almost 5 years, and now we're here in Taiwan. And so that's 3 different continents. You know, they're very young, and their worldview is just totally different.
Yeah.
What about you?
My son was born in Kuwait.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
He was born in Kuwait and has grown up in Kuwait and Taiwan. So he was not born in his country, and he's never actually lived in his country. So
And what is his country?
Eswatini.
Wow.
Which is the south of Africa, a little country inside South Africa. So it's very difficult. These kids are truly third culture kids because they have developed, their childhood development is taking place outside of their natural cultural environment. So we have to take that into perspective and how the impact of globalization in their lives is going to be, and how their lives are going to look very, very different from what everybody from where we're from is going to expect how children or how adults should be. These young adults are going to be different.
Very much so. I don't know about you, but like for me, I didn't leave my country. I didn't leave America till I was 27. My honeymoon was the first time that I really left, because you know, America's, as a general, I don't mean to generalize, but you know, we don't really leave often. We're doing more now, but back then, you know, I remember people asking like, why do you want to go to Italy to go to your honeymoon? Why don't you just go to Florida? I mean, it's just, I'm dead serious. Like, that was the options, you know. And so my kids, they've seen like 23 countries, lived on 3 continents, similar to yours. And it's one of those things where it does, for all the pros and cons, there are a lot of pros. Gives them a wonderful worldview. They see things so differently in every good way. The only thing that I noticed, and it speaks to what you were referencing to, I was on a Zoom call recently with my high school class. It was our 25-year anniversary. And I looked on that Zoom call and I saw faces of people that I've known since I was 2 years old. Several of them I went to elementary, middle school, high school, and then went to college with some. And so some of these people I have known my entire life. And we still we go to trips every year. Like, we still travel. The reason why we were on the Zoom was we were supposed to be in Jamaica, but thanks to COVID, we weren't going. And people are like, you really travel with folks from high school? And when I thought about it, I'm like, some of these folks I'm closer to than my cousins. Some of them may be my cousins, you know.
You never know.
We're from the South. It happens, you know. So, hey. And so I thought about, though, my kids will never have that.
Actually,
they just won't. But they'll have something different.
They will definitely have that, because guess what? Everybody that they're going to school with everywhere, especially at this period in age, they are going to be connected to those people throughout their lives.
Now, that's true.
Our kids are going to be, I need to go to Malaysia for a wedding this year. I need to go to Taiwan for a wedding next year. I need to go to New Zealand next year for a wedding. And then before you know it, they're going to be, Mom, I can't stay here because I've got a job somewhere in Fiji or somewhere else. Or what. So they're not going, home is not going to be where we call home.
No. And that's the thing, is that, you know, especially in America, I think we are defined so much by what state you're from or where you grew up. And for them, I remember asking my daughter right before we moved here, I said, where do you feel like you're from? What do you feel like you are? And she said, well, from everywhere.
Yes.
And it was very real for her, and it was beautiful. And so there was a part of me on that Zoom call, I was like, oh, my kids will never have this. But then the next day, you know, my daughter was on a Zoom call with her friend that they met in the UK. That person now lives in Brazil. They're really from Portugal. Then she was on another Zoom call with her friend who's in South Africa. So they will have other things, but that shapes how they interact,
Yes.
even with us as adults, because they have very mature worldly experiences.
Yes.
Age appropriate, but very different from us.
Different from how we were brought up. At
Yes.
this age, there were certain things that we couldn't really, as children, we were not expected to be able to answer back, or it was called talking back. Our kids saying
Why?
is a very, very interesting and time-filling experience for them.
Yes, it is. I think my daughter starts at no. Like the conversation, if it's a no, that's when the conversation starts. Now, I think she's going to make a great attorney someday. Right now, I wish she would table those skills, but she's not. And I'll be honest, I had to adjust. Being from raised in the South, I was raised in the church. My dad's a pastor, my mom's a minister of music. We were really raised like, you do not.
You go, PK.
You do not talk back. Like talking back was this thing, this unspoken rule, and telling your child because I said so was a legitimate answer. You tell a third culture kid because I said so, and they're gonna look at you like that is the most insane thing I've ever heard of. They legitimately want to engage in a dialogue,
and it's got nothing to do with authority or trying to disrespect you. It's literally, I'm trying to understand and talk with you to meet you somewhere where we can both understand each other.
Yes.
And I think both where we're from, how we were raised, that's like a no-go area.
Non-starter. Like that's something that you just don't do. But when you have, I had to think about it. When you've asked a child to navigate this world and to heighten their ability of analysis and understanding, because I think that's what living in a global environment does. You can't turn that off just because now I'm engaging with my mom. So this heightened ability for analysis and awareness and inquisitiveness that has been encouraged throughout every setting, I need to turn that off as soon as I talk to my parents. That is unnatural.
Not gonna work.
No, it's unnatural. And so what would be disrespectful if we were growing up is
they're normal for them.
Norm. Mm-hmm.
That's normal for them.
Yeah.
And also, talking about that, they are also far more competitive.
Yes. I was real passive at this age.
Yeah.
And I think the educational environment, which brings us to our second point, the educational environment almost breeds that. It is one that, especially in an international school setting, I think it really trains them. It's a beautiful attribute to have, but it trains them to want to achieve, to want to do their best. I do think that the international school settings outside of the U.S. is the only thing I have to compare it to. It's extremely competitive. And in particular, when we came to the Asian continent, I had to talk to one of my friends that is an educational lawyer, and she deals a lot with parents and students that are applying for school in Singapore or Japan, sometimes in China. The landscape of competitiveness is far more drastic than if you were in Europe. So for example, when we were in London, applying to the international school, there was no risk that you weren't going to get in. There were no capacity issues. There was no wait list. If you applied, you were going. Now, we let our kids go to a British school system, but certainly the American school system, it was not, the international school was not competitive. Here, the experience that we had here and that my lawyer friend had to validate, it is far more competitive. And sometimes when you're applying for schools, parents, you need to be aware that you need to have a conversation with your teacher. The normal thing that they may put on the application, Johnny talks too much, or sometimes Johnny can be a little, wordy, or some innocent comment can keep you from getting into a school.
Into a good school, especially in Taiwan, where the international schools getting in is so competitive. They have waiting lists. They have people locally, so many expats living in Taiwan who are waiting to get into international schools, that you really have to be careful when you are writing a recommendation letter for a child who's coming to get to school in Taiwan.
Yes. or in any Asian market,
Yeah.
because
Any Asian market actually, because Singapore is just as competitive.
Singapore is the same. Tokyo is the same.
Tokyo's the same.
Seoul, Korea, I heard is the same. So I think you need to really make sure that you investigate what the school market is and wherever it is you're moving to, because Dubai will be different from Taiwan, certainly different from London.
Kuwait will be different from anybody else. And I don't think in Kuwait it was that competitive either. It was a matter of finding a school that you can afford to go to and just, register and applicate and fill an application form, and your child is in. It wasn't as competitive.
Yeah, I think that's something that parents, if you're entering into a market, make sure that you research it, understand how competitive it is. I, of course, being a lawyer, my default setting, I think you need to talk to an educational law specialist and maybe even talk to someone about international education. They had us talk to an advisor that really helped, because it is different coming from the London market to here, and we were like taken aback and didn't understand it. There are a lot of different advisors and coaches that are out there that may even give you an hour consultation for free. So I would explore that. But there are a lot of websites, blogs, free information that you can get. Definitely look into it and know that you're going to have to be flexible.
Flexible and open and just ready to take whatever comes.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what it's about.
And give your kids a little bit of a break. You're asking them to navigate through a lot. And
That's true.
Yeah, and they're going to be different for all the pros.
Yeah, I think the Asian market is going to be a little different, especially with third culture kids. So do kind of give them the room to grow and to assimilate and to find themselves in their footing within those societies.
Absolutely. Well, we could talk about this ad nauseum. We'll come back possibly with more. But next time, tune in. This has been Trailing Spouses. We're talking about everything expat related and being a spouse. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.